G'day and welcome back to the Upside Fantasy Sports podcast. It is a TLT Blitz. It's round 23. We are into SuperCoach finals for the majority of people. So probably not classic head-to-head people, but our draft players, we are in the finals. And if you're not, feel bad for you, son, but that's okay. I'll be here to cater to you too anyhow. Round 23, there's a bye for the Roosters off the rip. There's going to be buys for many listeners here, so some of these things won't pertain to you. I'm going to just start straight away. If you're on buy and you're needy in 5'8", I think it's time to potentially look at Luke Metcalf. He's actually not in the reserves or anything. We'll get to that, but he's a guy you could potentially stash if you're needy in that spot. Say you lose Trindle and he might be out for 2 weeks. Luke Metcalf's a guy you might be able to pick up over the bye weekend at very low cost as a free agent, perhaps. Going to kick into here. Just a quick thing. Oh, my camera is in the wrong spot. I'm going to fix this live. Oh, this is going to be awkward. I don't even know like what size this usually is, but should do the trick. Is that all right? Yeah, whatever. Who cares? It's a podcast anyway, mainly. So just this post, I did a special bonus episode last week where I just introduced and spoke about NRL Auction draft, how you can sort of do it, some things to look out for, just basically a bit of a Kickstarter. It's not perfect. It's just an introduction. I think it's a good place to start. If you've been wondering about it, it gives you some details. And by having a visual accompaniment in terms of the auction board, it helps you just make sense of auction and consider whether your league and your friends can do it. I understand how niche it is. Literally no one really watched it. I even got, shout out if you're listening, I doubt he is, Brian Sini though, NRL Physio. Thank you for sharing that. Very big, probably the biggest content creator in our hobby. If you really think about it, Brian crosses all bounds. So credit to him. And I think it's James over there that is his co-host. So he reposted that on Twitter and it still didn't do anything for me, which is sad because I appreciate him responding to my begging. I essentially commented saying, can tagged a few people, can they share it? And thanks to Wilfred, if he's listening, he did too. But yeah, appreciate that from the Fizz. It just goes to show people don't even know what auction is. People don't even really play draft, which is the first issue. But auction is everything in America. So check that out if you haven't, if you're bored. It's only, 18 minutes long. It has a bit of faff, but not much. We speak about some stuff. And it might just get the ball rolling or, connect some dots for you in your league, maybe for next year, but probably the year after. You probably need another year of listening to things and seeing how it pans out and seeing if your draft leagues got the quote unquote maturity, not to be too corporate, but to take on the draft challenge. But the people who do it never go back and they can't ever fathom not doing auction. It's as simple as that, guys. People who do auction never go back and they never want to do anything but auction. I do it for NRL, I do it for NBA, and I do it for NRL, the most important things. NFL I don't care enough about to bother doing it, but yeah, it's just an absolute game changer. The other selling point is that it is the ultimate test of your knowledge because you can theoretically, if you strategize correctly, get any player you believe in. There comes a point you can't. There's a tipping point to that because you only have a budget. But if say there's 3 guys you're obsessed with, you can come away from the draft with those 3 players at a cost. So, you probably can't come away with Nico Hines, Nathan Cleary, and Kalen Ponga. That's probably not feasible, but you probably could. I'm thinking, the guy last year, he couldn't have done it. A guy went Reece Walsh and Hines and spent $170 on 2 players. He suffered as a result, but he wanted them and he got them and then paid the price. It's not wasn't that good of a strategy. But guys, if you believe in your knowledge and your drafting and your skill and your understanding, play auction. Moving on, game 1, Bunnies Storm. I'm going to be pretty quick today because there's a lot that doesn't really matter. Cody Walker's back. Doesn't have much of an impact because the other fella, he's dropped out. The Storm were pretty much the same team that played last week. Don't think there's anything really noteworthy in this game to mention. Fletcher Myers stays on the wing. Yeah, nothing worth really mentioning. Except Cheekham's over Duncan. I don't know if he started over him every time, but that doesn't really have an implication for drafters, I don't think. Next game, Phil Sami needs to be owned, I think. Just given foreigns on the right and the Titans are starting to play a bit of footy, I think he's definitely got to be owned if he's available. Stonestreet, I mentioned him last week. He was my waiver pickup. I can't even remember what he scored, but still like him on the left wing. But the problem is without Trindle, that does impact it a little bit. So, if he's a free agent, you're needy and you're on buy, I think you could grab him and have a look at him. I still like that scoring. I still like his athleticism and potentially what he can do. Just in a good offense with a solid finals run, the Sharks. Brayley goes to 7 and McInnes goes to 9. Don't think it impacts McInnes's offense output too much, but I think it might even be better for Brayley, but he'll lose a lot of base, so I'd be looking to avoid starting Brayley if I owned him potentially, just given this basis. Next game, Taulagi is going to the Panthers, and he's actually had a decent score in centre last week, so just quickly look at his matchup for people. Getting a bit ahead, but he does have an okay matchup too. So Taulagi is an interesting potential play here for the rest of the season, just given that he's just so talented. Just shouting that out in deeper leagues. Lane, Cartwright, and Madison should be owned. Lane, not as much, but I think Cardi, who scored pretty poorly, still played 80, which I love. Matt Dory's on the bench, but I think if you needy those Eels guys, not the best matchup, obviously, don't get me wrong, but just I'm looking sort of down the line and for people on bye. Daine Laurie's back, and he has to be owned, even if it's for 1 to 2 more weeks. Just a fullback playing in 5/8 in finals, that's really important. Brian To'o's moved to the right. It hasn't really conveyed. There was a moment, I think, there on the weekend where Tungo didn't see him or something and didn't pass to him, and then there was another moment where Iongi completely whiffed the pass, which he should have scored. So I think with Laurie and Edwards coming back, I think To'o's going to benefit, but who's to know? Next game, nothing for the Raiders. Ola Kawatu's back for the Manly, and Lehigh Hopewadi, I think, probably has to be owned, guys. It's not the world's best matchup, but just being on a wing while Tom Trbojevic is there, I think Lehigh Hopewadi is going to score well in try-scoring basis. So when he's back, I think he needs to be owned. Ruben Cotter's back for the Cows in the next one. Josiah Karapani's worth a speculative look. I wouldn't waver for him, but it's interesting. But I think if you're looking for someone in the forward pack, I think Xavier Willison can be wavered for. I think he is going to give you 50 plus, and the same goes for Corey Jensen. So get a hold of them if you're needy in those areas. Wilson's dual, which we love, and Jensen's just front row. Josh Adokar, I think, should be owned given the offense and given the matchup. More on the matchups on tomorrow's potty. Josh Curran's named, so his little 2 injury scares. So far, he's still running out there. Don't know what his minutes will be like, but I'm just happy to see him named, so that's pretty good. And I think Toby Sexton has a really good matchup this weekend, so if he's floating around, he's definitely a viable option. Nothing for the Dragons worth mentioning to me, really. Asako is named with his injury for the Dolphins in the next game. Cody Nikorima's back as well, so if he's floating around, he hasn't been great, but you just never know. Trindle owners, you could look at Cody. Chanel Harris-Tavita, I'd say it's probably his last or second last week, so keep an eye on that, because I do believe Metcalf will get a stab to finish the season. He's their main guy. Nothing else jumps out to me in those ones. Last game of the round, I think Fletcher Sharpe should be owned. I think, they had a tough matchup last week, but he still looked interesting. Fletcher Sharpe, not like from a scoring perspective, but he's just a good runner. He's really quick. There's a few moments there where I thought he could have backed his pace a little bit and seen if he could have got to the corner, but Iongi was pretty good. But I think Sharpe and Marju, if they've ever been dropped this weekend, you want them, get your hands on them. I think this could be not a get right game for the night, so to speak, but they should, even their depressing attack should click a little bit. With Crossland going off with the HIA last week, and I think it really mucked up the flow, and they were against Penrith, so they defended well, but I'm expecting a better performance from the Knights against the sort of Tigers, who are pretty average, and I think Marju and Sharpe need to be owned as the bookends there from a winger perspective. That'll do it. Questions, we probably don't have any. I sort of forgot to share the question thing, so I just want to get this one out just really quick. Just going to run through some names I think should be owned and whatnot, just for anyone out there who's listening and in trouble in any spot. Xavier Willison, front row 2RF, should be owned. Fletcher Sharpe, a great plug-in or potentially rest of season option in your CTW stocks. Tom Starling would be owned and needs to be owned. Bryce Cartwright, I think, he needs to be owned. Lindsay Smith, a great plug in front row. Mo Foto still presents as an interesting option in front row in deeper leagues. Isaiah Papali'i, I don't love the minutes, but the output's solid. I think he has scored tries to bolster it a bit, but he's an option in deeper leagues. Daine Laurie, a perfect plug this weekend. Think grab him. Samuel Stonestreet is a gamble, but I don't mind him in a bigger CTW rotation. Casey McLean, definitely got to be owned at this point. Dan Atkinson, I think he is a fine plug and play with Trindle out. I think he gets his hands on the ball a little more. Phil Sami, I think, needs to be owned. TPJ, the bench is better for him this weekend in really deep leagues for your front rower stocks. Dylan Walker, super risky. We've seen with the head knocks and stuff, but he's named again. He potentially does a job for you in 5/8. I think Toby Sexton should be owned by now with the Dogs and the way he's playing, and he's got a good matchup for the rest of the finals, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, there's a few names for you. Hopefully that helps you out. Really quick one, guys. Yeah, just chuck me any questions via the Twitter. It's pinned on my page for tomorrow's potty. I didn't get any out this potty, and I will respond to any questions on the post on Twitter on this if you have some dilemmas for waivers. Cheers, boys.